Hey there, it's Jennifer and Dan from Bandcamp, your go-to comedy band book podcast.
This season, we're headed down the Mississippi River with the adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
We'll read it out loud one chapter at a time, trying to figure out why it was banned in the first place.
But we're probably not going to be able to find a reason because book banning is stupid.
Join us every Tuesday and Thursday for new episodes.
Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
That's Bandcamp with 2 N's. Join us.
Our Weird World.
Welcome to Our Weird World. I'm your host, John Henson, and this is another Take 2 episode. Tried to record this one one other time, and then I went back and listened to it, and something messed up because I sounded like SpongeBob. I don't know that, I don't even know what setting got changed to where it just changed my voice a little bit, and I sounded just like SpongeBob. And look, I could have just released that episode. I could record a little thing up at the front like, hey guys, something wonky went on with audio. I sound like SpongeBob, but I didn't do that. So instead, I'm going to spend another 30 minutes recording this episode again. And it's fine, honestly, because, I was pretty tired when I recorded the original one. So I think this one will be better. All right. We are looking at some weird crimes from history. And we look at a lot of crime on this show, a lot of serial killing, a lot of raping, some theft, like some break-ins or whatever. But the crimes that we're looking at today, pretty different. All right. No one dies in this episode, which is cool. But yeah, just really strange things that you just don't hear about very often. 5 stories today. Some of them are pretty short, though. So looking at the stories of the Brassiere Brigade, the Kissing Case, Dwarf Tossing, the Hatton Garden Heist, and our first story will be of the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. On August 31st, 1944, a guy named Urban Rafe was fast asleep in his home on Grant Avenue in Mattoon, Illinois, when he was awoken by a really strange odor. At first, he thought that it was, maybe he thought it was a gas leak, but he tried to get up and kind of wobble over to the bathroom like he's very lightheaded. He was nauseous. He felt really weak. And as soon as he gets to the bathroom, just projectile vomits all over the place. That wakes up his wife. She tries to go see, she tries to get down to the stove to see if there is a gas leak. But when she tries to get out of bed, she realizes that she is partially paralyzed. Like she can't move her legs and she can't even get out of the bed. So the next day in Mattoon, another woman in the town noticed a very strong and sweet smelling odor around 11 p.m. She thought it might have been the flowers coming from, through the scent of the flowers coming from an open window outside. But then she also started losing the feeling in her legs, and her lips and her throat began burning. So she panics. She calls her sister, who lives right down the street. Her sister comes over and realized that the odor that was coming through her bedroom window. So the woman's sister, she calls police. They come out. They don't find anything. And then the woman's husband, Bert Kearney, comes home, I guess, from working a late shift about an hour later. And as he comes in, he sees a dark man, a man in dark clothing, which is a very different thing. If I say a dark man, you think I'm talking about a black guy. We don't know. It could have been very well, could have been, but just a guy in dark clothing. He's kind of sneaking around one of the home's windows. Bert tries to chase after him, but he can't keep up with him. So over the next 2 weeks, more than a dozen other people reported these same attacks. They smell something and then they just get really sick. They lose feelings in their legs, like their face is burning. It's insane. However, no one is able to provide a good physical description of this attacker, and there was rarely any evidence ever left at the scene of each report. The only clue that investigators ever found came on September 5th when a piece of white cloth was found sitting on the porch of Carl and Beulah Cords' home. And the reason that they found this was because Beulah saw this cloth and just picked it up randomly. She'd never seen this cloth before. She knew it wasn't her. She just picked it up and then decides to just take a big old of it and immediately gets really sick. All right. Lesson learned here, right? If you ever see a cloth or a towel that you don't recognize, don't sniff it. All right. Just don't do that. I don't think you either A, ignore it, or B, you do pick it up and then you throw it in the trash. Those are your only two. You don't sniff it. All right. But that's what Beulah did. Her face swelled up like she was having an allergic reaction. Her mouth and her throat burned. She just, like the first guy, projectile vomiting all over the porch. Her legs went numb. Like, it was insane. But along with this cloth, investigators also found a skeleton key on the sidewalk near the porch. So I said they only found the cloth. They found the cloth and a skeleton key and a large empty tube of lipstick. Authorities analyzed the cloth, but they did not find anything wrong with it. They could not even find any trace of any kind of harmful chemical. And then later that night, a woman reported that a man had attempted to break into her bedroom and gas her. So at this point, police are starting to really get concerned over the growing number of these really odd gas attacks. But here's the thing. They eventually also received so many false alarms that in the end, they formally announced that the entire thing was just being caused by paranoid women who were just anxious about their husbands being off at war. And here's the crazy part. After Mattoon police make this announcement, the reports of gas attacks stopped coming in entirely. Sure, you could say, well, women just stopped reporting it because they didn't want to not be taken seriously. And maybe, sure. But the report stopped after that. And the Mad Gasser, if it was a person who repeatedly attacks people, he was never identified. And there's a decent chance that maybe there was one or two attacks. But we've also seen this sort of thing happen where you get this sort of mass hysteria and all of a sudden people want to be a part of it. We saw this in, I think it was not the Jack the Ripper episode, but, and maybe even in another one where it was like Spring Heel Jack or the guy running around smacking women on the butt and Spanko, that guy. It happened to a couple of people and then it became kind of the talk of the town. And now all of a sudden, other people want to be involved in it, but they're not really, they just want attention. And so they fake their own attacks. And it's just this mass hysteria sort of thing that gets built up. And that might've been what happened here because no one ever knows who the Mad Gasser of Mattoon ended up being. Our next story here, going down to Miami, Florida, back when payphones were a big deal. And the Southern Bell Telephone Company owned just an innumerable amounts of phone booths throughout Miami. These booths obviously required coins in order to work, which meant that the coins needed to be manually collected from the booths on a regular basis. So when the company workers would empty the coins from the machines, the coins were then placed in sealed boxes and taken to a counting room in the company building, where the regional or the city headquarters or whatever. And in that counting room, 8 female employees counted the coins and processed the income into the company's reporting system. And there's a huge issue with that from, I guess, kind of a security standpoint. And this is what these women figured out, because these women realized they were the first people who actually reported the money, the revenue that Southern Bell was taking in. And no one else in the company actually knew how much money these phone booths were taking in until after these women had processed those coins and written down the amount on their reports. So realizing that they just had just a giant treasure chest, piles of like Scrooge McDuck money that they could just jump in and swim around in. These women began stuffing rolls of quarters into their bras. And then they would go to the restroom where they had an accomplice waiting to smuggle their treasure out of the building. And this plan worked for several months until September of 1950, when Miami police were called to the home of Rita Orr, who was reporting $5,000 missing from a chest. Orr was the sister-in-law of Marie Orr, who was one of the employees working in the counting room. And as Rita is talking to police, another woman, Betty Corrigan, who was one of Marie's coworkers, showed up at the house. So Officer Ray Mills, he's in the middle of this investigation. Betty's kind of acting weird. And so he searches Betty's car and he finds 2 suitcases stuffed with more than $4,000 in quarters and another suitcase with $1,000 in paper money. So Betty has $5,000. She adamantly argues that this is a completely different $5,000 than what Rita is claiming to be missing. And that didn't really make sense to police. And so they start investigating this entire thing even deeper. And they kind of started to put this puzzle together, right? So obviously they figured out everything that you already know. And when word got out about these bra stuffing women, the media lost their minds. Just include boobs in anything, because that's the only reason this story became a thing, just because boobs were involved. And the media loved this because it had nothing to do with a sophisticated crime ring going completely unnoticed for months, because that's just life in Miami. Every business in Miami is also part of some sort of crime ring. I'm totally convinced of that. But because boobs were involved in this particular crime ring, it got all the attention. So the Brassiere Brigade, as the employees who participated in this came to be known, it was revealed that they had been smuggling about $150 a day. And look, I don't know how salaries work in 1950, but I feel like $150 a week, that comes out to, over $500 a month, right? That's pretty good. That's pretty good money. They may not have been making that much a week. So, and this is probably an entry level minimum wage kind of job. So to add $150 a day to what you're already making at base, you're making some good cash. And so Rita Orr and Betty Corrigan, at the time of the police's investigation, were both in possession of $10,000 each. And they had used other money that they had stolen to buy themselves new cars and pay off the mortgages to their house, which, you don't do that. You got to just stash that money for later. Take a couple of rolls at a time to the bank, right? Don't just cash it all at once. That's poor. That really makes you look guilty, right? It's poor execution on their part. But here's the thing. Despite verbally confessing to stealing this money, prosecutors weren't actually able to file any charges because, one, the women weren't recording how much money they had been stealing. They were just taking random rolls of quarters here and there. Also, Southern Belle couldn't produce a concrete amount of money that had been stolen because the women were the ones who were responsible for entering it into the company system to begin with. So again, huge flaw in this sort of systematized revenue stream setup that Southern Belle had. And eventually the women in the Brassiere Brigade figured this out. They realized that Southern Belle couldn't charge them because they didn't know how much money they'd been taking. So they changed their stories entirely and refused to sign a written confession. Instead, they began to claim that all of the coins they had in their possession had been theirs the entire time and that they had just probably found them in between couch cushions somewhere. And although 6 of the 8 women actually showed up for work the next day, All of them were fired and they were refused entry into the building. But Southern Bell was not content with that. They then had their toll records flown in from Jacksonville and sent their accountants to comb through the records to look for any discrepancies. Still, though, like, accountants weren't really able to find anything concrete. They were able to find some shortages in a couple of different months, and apparently that was enough to charge these women for grand larceny, or in their case, just stealing more than $50. The women were convicted and sentenced to a year in prison for this, and for the entire time, like, the Miami press was just making jokes about this case. Like, one headline or whatever was like, "Justice as elastic as the items in which they carried their loot snapped back today on members of Miami's Brassiere Brigade." Like, because boobs, right? Our next story here. In 1958, Fuzzy Simpson and James Thompson, who were both black, and that is a very important detail, were playing a game with a white girl in their Monroe, North Carolina neighborhood. Monroe, just outside of Charlotte here. So this is kind of a local story for me. A part of this game, though, that these three kids were playing involved the white girl running in between Fuzzy and James and kissing them on their cheeks. All right. Later that evening, the girl went home and told her parents about her day, told her that she played this game with these kids, and her parents were immediately outraged that those blacks, those black devils, had tricked their innocent white daughter into whoring herself out, and that's literally how they framed it. The girl's father rounded up some neighbors, and they all grabbed their shotguns and went looking for Fuzzy's and James's families. A short time later, the two boys were arrested and charged with molestation, even though there was no indication that they ever touched this girl. The girl was the one who was doing the kissing and the touching. The two boys were just like sitting there like, yeah, man, it's pretty sweet. Anyway, for 6 days, these boys were detained in Monroe's jailhouse without access to their parents or a lawyer, and they were beaten in a lower level cell in the police station, mostly just because they were black. When they were finally put on trial, a juvenile court found them guilty and sentenced them to indefinite terms in a reform school. And again, they had no defense lawyer with them to help them out in court. Even more, the KKK, which had a branch headquartered in Monroe, burned crosses and fired guns in front of the family's homes. Now, North Carolina, in general, which has never really had a great track record of, like, refusing to back down after doing dumb things, see HB2, they continued to deny legal counsel for these two boys, even through the appeals process. They even refused to let their mothers visit them while they were being held in jail. Former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt couldn't even convince the governor to repeal the case, telling him, "Dude, this looks really bad. These kids did not do anything." And the governor was just like, I'm not touching it. So finally, Joyce Egginton from the London Observer, London, England, she somehow heard about this case, and she was granted access to the prison, and she brought the boys' mothers in with her so that they could visit. When she finally published her story overseas, the event sparked outrage across Europe. And if you can outrage Europe when it comes to something racist, you have done something incredibly bad, all right? Like, you think there are problems with racial issues in America. Go to Europe, all right? Europe, not nearly as diverse as the United States, right? Like, got a good number, at least if you're in the South or the Northeast, like the metro areas, or like even the West Coast. Lot of diversity. All right. Not so much when you get like into the Midwest and the Great Plains. A lot of white people out there, but along the edges and in the South, especially, got a lot of black people, got a lot of Hispanics. All right. Go out West, you probably got a lot of Asians. All right. A lot of diversity. In Europe, not nearly any. Most everyone in Europe is white. All right. So when maybe there's some African basketball players or soccer players, for example, that have immigrated, they are subjected to some of the most racist, ignorant people that could possibly live. Like there's always a story, at least once a year, of like a soccer player getting bananas thrown at him during a match. like just over the top racism. So for this North Carolina case to anger people in Europe, this is how ridiculous this was. Demonstrations were held in Paris, Rome, Vienna, and Rotterdam in support for these boys. People attacked U.S. embassies, and an international committee was formed to try to defend the boys, even though they never ended up getting called to action. Finally, state officials like kind of gave in and asked the mothers to sign a waiver stating that if the boys admitted their guilt, they would just be released. And that did not happen. Even though the mothers did sign this waiver, I think, and, got the boys to admit, like, they still didn't get released. And then finally, after spending 3 months in prison, the boys were finally pardoned by the governor without any conditions or any kind of explanations. To this day, I'm pretty sure the state nor the city of Monroe have ever formally apologized for this event. And honestly, like, why would they? Like, these formal apologies decades after the fact are just PR stunts, and like they don't really do any good. So, but yeah, just a crazy little story there. Another short one here. In 1989, a law was signed in Tallahassee that banned dwarf tossing from all bars throughout the state, thanks mostly to lobbying by the little people of America who were like, it makes little people look bad and they might just pick us up on the street and throw us all willy-nilly because they think it's okay. No one was going to do that, but whatever. As the name suggests, though, dwarf tossing was a popular game, bar game, really, in which little people, they would dress up in a very heavily padded onesie. And then, you would stand at one end with your LP there. And at the other end would be like a mattress or like a Velcro padded wall with like a target on it. And, maybe the goal was to see who could throw the little person the farthest or who could hit the bullseye, whatever. Loads of fun. All right. Tons of different ways, by the way. I'm going to go off into tons of different ways you could throw a little person. All right. Like, first, you can just maybe just take them, like kind of like they do at like dog shows, one, kind of up on the chest, one just kind of in the crotch area. You just lift them up over your head and just, like a soccer throw in, just heave them, other one you could do, kind of maybe like a one-handed sort of thing, especially if it's a real little person, maybe like have them sit in the palm of your hand and you just kind of shot put that little guy, just shot put him out over there. The other one, maybe you just grab them by their ankles, right? And you just kind of discus them, you kind of spin around, get some momentum going, and you just sling them against the Velcro wall. Oh, I'm a terrible person. Anyway, shockingly, I can't believe this is the case, but there were people who did fight to keep this activity legal, including actual little people who claimed that outlawing dwarf tossing was preventing them from making a decent living and was impeding on their human rights. And I can't argue with that. Like, if an LP willingly wants to get thrown, like if Wee Man just wants to get thrown for money, let him do it, right? Like we let professional wrestlers throw each other around for they willingly do it. They discuss these things before the match. They're like, hey man, all right, here's how we're going to finish this match. You're just going to grab me by my throat, pick me up and slam me through this table that I have also set on fire. And we let people do that. But then we were like, nah, little people can't do it because it's dangerous or something. I don't know. And I don't know. I think we should let them. I think we should just let them do what they want to do. In 2011, Florida Representative Rich Workman, who didn't even condone dwarf tossing, but just, I guess, trying to win the votes of the Floridian little people, he introduced a bill to have dwarf tossing reinstated, claiming that little people should have every right to make themselves look ridiculous, just like normal-sized people did. However, his bill died in committee, and as far as I can tell, dwarf tossing still illegal in Florida. Our final story here, in 2016, a group of men who had spent their entire lives as professional thieves decided to come together for one last job. All right, this is clearly the start of an action comedy. So this group of 7 men whose ages ranged from 42 to 76 planned their final hit for 3 years. And as part of this is how ridiculous this gets. Part of their planning, they purchased a copy of Forensics for Dummies so that they could keep up with and learn about all the newfangled technologies that the kids are using. And they targeted the Hatton Garden Safety Deposit Building in London. I believe it's in London. And they were going to rob it. They were going to rob this giant vault. So when the Easter holiday came around in 2016, all the banks closed, as they do, and these men decided to hobble, I guess, with their canes and stuff into action. The oldest man, 76-year-old Brian Reeder, literally arrived to the heist on the bus using his free senior citizen bus pass. This is so ridiculous. The group was also dressed as construction workers, and they entered an elevator shaft at the Hatton Garden Safety Deposit Building and climbed down into the vault. Now, here's what's nuts about this. Just by doing this, they triggered a silent alarm, which I guess wasn't part of their Forensics for Dummies book. And police were very well aware that the silent alarm was going off at Hatton Garden, but they ignored it because bugs had been triggering this alarm for several days now, and they just assumed that that's what it was, and they ignored it. So after having to stop on their way to the vault to let one of the men take his insulin shots, they then drilled through the concrete wall only to find that they couldn't actually get into the vault that way. And apparently, these career criminal masterminds did not have a plan B. They thought that this was going to be their one direct shot, and then they found out they couldn't get there, so they just went back home, right? They got that far and then got caught, blocked, and decided to turn around and go home. They returned 2 days later after regrouping and coming up with a new plan. They did the same thing, went through the construction site, triggered the silent alarm. Police ignored it. They finally got their way into the vault. They emptied 73 different deposit boxes containing $20 million worth of gold, jewels, and cash. And no one knew anything about what had happened until bank employees arrived for work 2 days later to find the vault. They just left the vault open to make it obvious that it had been, robbed. Meanwhile, all of these men had been back at their favorite bar, reveling in the fact that they had just pulled off the largest theft in English history. May still be, I don't know if it still is or not, but at least at the time, the largest theft in English history. They kind of argued, as they do, over how to split it, because apparently they didn't want to split it evenly 7 ways. But while they tried to figure out that arrangement, they began hiding all of their loot in various places on their property. 45 days later, police finally figured it out and sent 200 police officers to raid 12 different locations in London and arrest all 7 men. The Hatton Safety Deposit Building, however, was quickly liquidated. People did not want to keep their stuff there anymore since it was clearly very vulnerable. And authorities were able to go back to work on returning all of the stolen items back to their original owners. All right, weird crimes in the books. I did not sound like SpongeBob. I went back and checked. So weird. There was also the episode a while back, like a couple of months ago, where the volume just progressively got quieter and quieter. And I nothing. I don't know what happened there, because the levels on my recording software didn't get smaller and smaller to indicate that there was something wrong with the voice. I don't know, man. Just a bunch of silliness with technology. But let's review today and see what we learned.
What did we learn?
Number one, people in Mattoon, Illinois started getting randomly gas attacked by somebody, and then a bunch of people started faking it, became this whole big thing, and then police said, "No, guys, it was a hoax," and then everybody stopped. It was really weird. No one really knows what happened. Number two, 1950, women in Miami were stuffing rolls of quarters in their bras to steal from Southern Belle, and it worked, and it would have worked if they had just been so smart about it, but they weren't, and so they eventually got caught. And then number three, the kissing case, one of the strangest kind of racially related incidents, kind of in the equal rights era. Just so stupid. And to piss off Europe with your racism really says a lot just about how ridiculous that case actually was. Also, they should definitely make a movie about the Hatton Garden Heist, right? Like, it's clearly an action comedy, right? And so you got to have, like, probably Clint Eastwood is the oldest guy, even though I don't know if Clint Eastwood could even do a British accent. That might be, no, hang on, screw that entirely. Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, right? Ian McKellen is the old guy getting off the bus, using his free bus pass to go rob this bank. Patrick Stewart is the old guy who needed to stop the entire group and have his insulin shot, right? And then from there, we can just find like 5 other older people who could do a British accent, right? You know what? And screw that. Like, Woody Harrelson can be the youngest of these robbers, right? And then we can find 4 other like British dudes. That would be a great movie. I would watch that movie, assuming it was written very well. Anyway, next week on Our Weird World, we are looking at some urban legends. All right. It's going to be Christmas. There's kind of a tradition, an old European tradition, where on Christmas, people would actually read scary stories to each other. And so like these, not necessarily like the scariest stories, but they're like real creepy urban legends from around the country that people talk about and believe really exist. We're going to look at the stories of the Melonheads, the Bunny Man of Washington, D.C., and Charlie No Face. So come back next week as you're driving to or from your relative's house for Christmas and listen to some urban legends. But that's going to do it for this week. Thank you for continuing to listen. Keep telling all your friends and keep it weird. All right, I'm going to reframe this one. This is a song by R. Kelly, and I can't believe people were shocked when all of the allegations against him came out, all right? Because this is the kind of things that he put in his lyrics. I like the kind of shorts with big booties in them. Well, I like the crotch on you. Yeah. I like the crotch on you. I like, I want, I need, I like, I want, I need, wiggling and wiggling. You know what I'm saying? I like, girl, I like those Daisy Dukes on you. Girl, you look so fine. I want to get with you. So tell me who's your man. We will have a talk with him. Yeah, 'cause it's sold out like that. R, bring the verse back. Now the time has come for you and I to knock it, so bring it on, and I'll do you all night long. Give me your number, and I'll call you yesterday to let you hear what I have to say. I like the crotch on you. I want the crotch on you. I need the crotch on you. So tell me what you're gonna do. I like the crotch on you. I want the crotch on you. I need the crotch on you. So tell me what you're gonna do. I like the bunnies with the shorts on, with the booties left all in 'em. So bend over, baby, and let me freak your denim. You got the kind of booty I would love to freaky deaky 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 deaky. No, but not without the gym hat strapping, ho, because I got the 12 play happening. The honey lover man's got something for ya. So baby, let me squeeze ya. I gotta get to know ya. I like the crotch on you, and that's that. Now let the damn verse circle back. Oh, what's going on inside my pants? I can't explain. So bring your body over here, baby, and let the freak daddy drive you crazy. I've got what you want, so baby, come and get it. Come on, babe, I like you. Yeah. Come on, baby, let me see you swing it, swing it. I like the way you come up, baby, when you wiggle it, jiggle it. Tasty. And once you see the D's, oh, you're gonna want to freak me. Only if you're old enough, baby. 18 and over or 16 and under. Oh, but how I wonder. What? Give me the chance to show you what I have in store for you. Baby, I like the crotch on you. I want the crotch on you. I need the crotch on you. Once you see the Bozak, you're gonna freak. Once you see the Bozak, you're gonna freak. He says this like 8 times in a row. It's really stupid. Hey, this is going out to all the ladies. You know what I'm saying? Because I had a little experience before I got my album out. Didn't nobody want to give me no play, right? Although I had a few girls in my clique that was down with me, but this goes out to all the ladies who didn't want to give me no play. But now they sweating me, you know what I'm saying? But it's cool, I'm with that. But I just want to get something off my chest with this second album, right? So I'm gonna break it down, explain it to you like this. Check it out. Back in the days, I used to say, can I get with you today? And you told me, no, Rob, no way, no how, not today. I used to say, do you mind if we spend a little time? And they told me, no, Rob, no way, no how, not today. I used to walk up to the girls. I said, can I rock your world? And they told me, no, Rob, no way, no how, not today. And I used to say, can I rock your boots today? And you told me, no, Rob, no way, no how, not today. Okay, we get it. But now that I'm all that, and you see they used to call me whack, but now they say, yes, Rob, come on, right now, you go, boy. You see they used to call me stank, but now I'm walking to the bank. And now they tell me, yes, Rob, come on, right now, you go, boy. I asked them time and time again, but now they see me driving in my Benz, and now they say, yes, Rob, come on, right now, you go, boy. Know what I'm saying? You a fool. Hey, so anyway, put your money up there, and we can shoot some ball right on 18th Street, straight up. What?